Hey everyone, today we're going to go over how to install an inner tube on an electric scooter tire. If you're looking to do a tubeless tire or solid tire installation, check out our other videos. This one is going to be just for installing the inner tube version of our tires. So first thing you'll want to do is remove any air that's left in the tire if it's not already deflated. And then you can go around with your hands and just try to separate the tire from the rim. It'll make it a little bit easier to get off. Once you do that, you'll want to have a pair of tire pries or some similar type of lever to get underneath in between the rim and the tire. And you'll want to get a piece of the tire over top of the rim. And once you have the first tire pry inserted, you can come through with the second. It's usually easier with two people, but if it's just yourself, it's definitely possible. Just a little bit tricky. You'll want to get about a third of the tire off the rim, and then you can remove the pries and use your hands to get the remaining piece off. So usually if you're just replacing the inner tube, you wouldn't have to do this, but for demonstration purposes, if you did want to put an inner tube into a tubeless tire setup, you would have to remove the tubeless tire valve, which I'm going to show you how to do right here. Usually just a pair of needle nose pliers will be enough to pull that out. And then you'll use that same hole to insert the valve of the inner tube through when you're doing the installation. I also wanted to quickly show you what this looks like on top of the rim without the tire attached, just so you can see how the valve is going through the valve hole and what it looks like inflated. Obviously, the biggest difference between a tubeless and a tube tire is that this inner tube is providing all of the expansion within the wheel. So the next step, and one of the most important, is preparing the new tire to make it easier to put onto the rim. So we're going to run through a couple different options. The first, which is the most simple, just running the tire under hot water and applying dish soap to the inner and outer edges of the tire to make it easier to put onto the rim by acting as a lubricant. The next one, which we actually prefer if you have the equipment, is heating the tire in a stovetop pot for about 3 to 5 minutes on high heat. Just be careful that the water doesn't come to a full boil and make sure to pull it out with something other than your hands. A third option that you'll often come across in online tutorials is heating the tire in the microwave. We don't recommend this just based on the fumes that it's going to emit into your home and the fact that you can also cause damage to the tire itself when heating in the microwave. So once you have the tire heated up, you're going to want to wear gloves because the rubber will still be hot. From here you want to twist it back and forth a few times to give the rubber some added flexibility for getting onto the rim. So once you have the tire heated and soaked, you can go ahead and insert the tube into the wheel. Just make sure you have that tube fully deflated. It's going to make it a little bit easier to go on. It's also going to prevent any pinches that can happen during the installation, which could cause a small tear in the tube, which you definitely don't want. The first slide should go on relatively easy. Once you do, just make sure you have that valve lined up with the valve hole before you start pressing the second slide onto the rim. Occasionally, sometimes it could be a little bit tricky to pull out if you have a pair of needle nose pliers or something of the sorts that are small enough to pull that valve through. You'll want to make sure it's all the way in before you go through with the rest of the installation. Again, this can be quite difficult with just one person. If you have two people, that's great. If not, you'll probably need to use your foot, or if you have a vice grip to use as a second point of leverage, that's even better. You can use tire pries. Just want to be careful that you're not going to damage any part of the tire or the tube while you're doing that. You have to be really careful that you're not going to put a tear into this. Usually heating it up does enough to be able to get it to slide on relatively easily. But again, using that foot as a second place to hold the rim onto place could be a good option for you. Once you have everything on, you don't need an air compressor because this is an inner tube tire. Usually a bike pump would work fine, but you want to inflate it up to 50 to 60 psi. Once you have it inflated, before you install it back onto the scooter, you might want to wait a few minutes just to ensure that there are no leaks happening inside the wheel. If it looks good, then you're good to go.